Meet. Okay, so this is the title of my talk that I'm actually going to give today. There were several versions in the programs. So let's see, let's get started. So first, I want to ask you questions, and maybe Dimitri asked you these questions already. Just by show of hands, how many people here are just individual programmers doing software development? So, okay, a handful. How many are a programmer but working at a company? Okay, most of you. How many are working at a software outsourcing company? Wow, okay. Well, I guess I came to the right room. And then how many of you just doing marketing or sales or that kind of activity? Okay, a handful of you. Well, quite a few actually now that I see. So I think for you programmers, this will be very interesting, and for the marketing folks, even more so, I hope. Okay, how many people like Disney World, Disneyland? Yay! So I'm the same way. When I was a kid, I always wanted to go to Disneyland. That's all we had in the United States at that time. So there's me. I grew up in New Jersey on the East Coast. Disneyland was on the West Coast. And when I wanted to go, my parents said, sorry, it's too far away. So then in the early 1960s, there was a World's Fair in New York City, and that's where I was able to go. My parents took me to this World's Fair in New York City where Disney had a ride. It was the first time they had ever set up this ride. It was at the World's Fair in New York City. I went on this ride with my mother, and we were going along, and the music is playing, and the ride is going, and it stops. I'm like, well, what happened? And it was like broken for like 10, 15 minutes. Of course, this was the first time they'd ever set up the ride. But the music kept playing. And you know what song it was? It's a small world after all. Do you know this song? You know, Belarusians love to sing, so maybe we should all sing this song. Right? Okay. It's a small world. So I guess that made such an impression on me listening to that song for 20 minutes on the ride that now I do go around the world and I help American companies do software development, even in Belarus. Okay, so here's what I'm really going to talk about. There's a problem. There's a problem that companies like those that develop software in Belarus have, and there's a problem that North American companies have also. So what is the problem? In particular, what is the problem that those companies in the United States have? And what are you doing to sell your services that address that problem? So we'll talk about what works and what doesn't work. We'll talk about buyer personas. I know everybody knows about personas. Someone mentioned this in the startup mixer last night, so I know some of you probably know about this. We'll talk about the information that clients want, and what I think will really appeal to you programmer types like me, I was a programmer too, is we're going to talk about different stages or phases in a whole sales process. So we're going to talk, you guys are expert at software development process. Now we're going to talk about the buyer process, what the buyer goes through, especially in his or her mind. So there, you'll see, I'll propose that there are 7 different phases that the buyer goes through. I'll tell you a little bit about my company, and then at the end we'll have the announcement of who won 2 copies of my book, which are around here somewhere. So, okay, so have you ever heard this expression? It's a common expression in English. Build a better mousetrap, and the world will be the path to your door. In other words, customers will come to you. You won't have to go out and find them. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work that way. How about this? Do you know this movie from America called Field of Dreams? Anybody know this movie? Okay, good. There's a line in this movie, build it and they will come. So this man, played by actor Kevin Costner, hears these voices, and they tell him to build a baseball field. And I know baseball's not very popular here, so you probably have not seen this movie. But against all common sense and rational thought, he builds this baseball field in his cornfield. He knocks down the corn and he builds this, and magical things happen. So build it and they will come. It kind of inspires a lot of technology entrepreneurs to just go ahead and build a software product but sometimes the customers don't come. And you wind up in a crowded market, and I think that's the problem that software development companies in Belarus and in other parts of the world also are finding themselves in. You're in a crowded market, it's difficult to find customers and for them to find you. So in a predictable way. Well, one solution is to hire a salesperson in the United States. So he or she gets a salary, they get an office to go to, they are on the telephone, they're calling people, but sometimes it doesn't work out, and they may be able to find one or two deals, but then it kind of goes dry. You can hire a company to generate lots of leads for you, people you can talk to and call, but you're calling from here, and oftentimes those leads are really not very good. You may get leads through your website, but you still have to communicate with them and close them, and unless you have a really super website, it's not likely that you're going to get many leads from that. And I can tell you about ways that you can improve your website if you'd like. So the bottom line is you have technical excellence, but no one really cares, and your marketing materials are most likely all about you. And we're going to turn that around for you today and tell you how to do them differently. Cold calling, you know this expression? It's calling someone you don't really know. Will they answer? What do you do if they don't? Is there a secretary you have to speak to before you can reach the person that you really want to talk to? This happens all the time. Guys from India call and they have this really bad connection on Skype, and it's like, oh, forget it, I don't even want to talk to them. And then when you finally do get through to someone, they say, I'm busy, I don't need what you have, send me an email. And that means no. And if you do send them an email, or if you don't bother calling and just send them an unsolicited email, what does that email say? How many people get emails from India? I hate to pick on India. Great. But we have wonderful companies there. Yay! You get she has 2 hands up, so she gets 2 emails a day from India. And what do they say? They say, let me tell you all about myself. Now, I could have stood up here. It was bad enough I told you I was from New Jersey, right? And that I wanted to go to Disneyland. Imagine if I just kept on going and told you all about my history. Boring. So I'm not going to do that. But that's what these guys do in the email. And then this line I love. I visited your website, and there's a perfect fit. I'm like, did you really visit my website? I don't think so. Or the first thing they want to do is schedule a meeting. So they've done nothing to communicate to you about your problem or the client's problem. You've done nothing to communicate with them about their problem. So in the United States, radio and TV stations have call letters. As you probably know, they either begin with W or they begin with K. I don't know why we got stuck with those letters, but that's what we have. And so on the East Coast, radio stations begin with a W. WABC, WXYZ, there's a bunch of different radio stations. What do your prospects and buyers listen to? We say as a joke, they listen to WIIFM. What's in it for me? I don't care that you have 38 years of .NET experience. I want to know what's in it for me. So you have to create your marketing materials this way. So we asked about buyer personas. So some people know about this. It's really coming up with a description of what your customers look like and getting down to an individual level. So here's a guy named Dave. He's a VP of engineering. So what do you think are Dave's problems, or what does he think about as a VP of engineering at a software product company? So I want to hear some ideas. What do you think are some of the problems and challenges that Dave faces in doing his job? Yeah, he wants to launch this product early, so time to market is an important aspect. What else?
I don't have enough resources to develop new features.
Yeah, I can't hire enough programmers. Dave can't hire enough programmers, right? He puts the ads out, he goes on LinkedIn, he tries to hire the programmers, maybe he gets some resumes, maybe those guys don't work out, and that's also adding delays. Another one that I think of is, okay, now that I have my 5 programmers, will they all work together? Does Dave know enough about the software development process to really get them to work as a team? I would say probably, because Dave is probably very technical. Okay, anything else? What else? What other problems does Dave have? Yeah. They don't perform well. I've hired programmers, but they're just not so good. Maybe not educated enough, maybe they don't work in a team as well. So good, you get the idea, and these are the things that keep poor Dave up at night. So one thing, I think he's thinking in terms of products. He's thinking long term. Okay, I'm going to develop this product and I'm going to have multiple releases, so I need a team that can execute and function over time. Quality is very important. Time to market came up, and of course Dave is very technical. At least this Dave is. Then you have the CIO. So we think of the market of companies looking to develop software in two major segments. There's guys like Dave, who are working for a software product company, and then there's people like, I think I called her Asha here. She is a CIO. She's probably not very technical, but what do you think some of her problems are as being the CIO at a company that's developing software for internal use rather than to offer it as a product? What's keeping her up at night? Any ideas? Sorry? Return on investment. So she's got to spend some money to develop software, and she wants to make sure she's going to get that money back because of, well, what's that software going to do? It'll probably increase productivity maybe of her people. Also, she's concerned about the amount of money that she would have to spend on it. Anything else? What else keeps up a CIO or an application developer? Has enough budget to hire the programmers? Right. Well, let's see. Let's jump ahead here. So I think instead of products, she's thinking in terms of applications. And these are applications she develops once, maybe has some enhancements, but it's not a long-term, multi-year kind of a thing. Quality is also an issue, but the business value, the ROI that you mentioned, that's really good. And not because she's a woman, but just because of the role she plays, she's probably less technical. She's not going to tell you how to optimize your C code or anything like that. So you can take this persona and develop it into an entire story, and I'm sorry to give you such a wordy slide. At least I put Dave's picture on it. But let me just read just the first part and the last part. We've got a new development project starting up, and I'm responsible for bringing it in on time. If past experiences are anything to go by, I'm in for a rough ride. So Dave, he's starting to worry. So we're trying to build an understanding of what's going through your prospect's mind before they start to look for your services. And then at the very bottom it says, if this project is late, it's going to really impact me and my development team and the company too. I mean, he might even get fired if he screws it up. Same with Asha here. She is, her company is needing to stay competitive. Actually, she's a client of ours and she works for a building materials company. And this company was having Excel spreadsheets all around to keep track of information, and they decided, this is stupid, we really need to have a web application so everything is centralized. So it would really increase the productivity of her company if she could get this software going. Okay, so there's a bunch of problems. They have critical software needs. They can't hire enough forget great. If I can hire just good programmers, they'd be happy. I can't even find them. I have a bad development process. Someone said will the programmers work together? Budgets get cut, and they've tried global outsourcing, and it's failed in the past. There's been many, many stories from America where, as we say, the decision makers got dollar signs in their eyes when they saw how cheap those programmers were. In India, China, Ukraine, fill in the blank with your favorite country, they've tried hiring those cheap programmers, and it hasn't worked out. And that's because they've often hired companies that are really good at recruiting people, but not doing any management, not doing any software process or anything like that. So, I mean, these are serious problems. Like I said, it's keeping them up at night. It almost feels like mission impossible. You're like, what am I going to do? I'm tired. I'm working nights. I'm trying to make it happen. This is really, really pain. And it's almost like they want to take a gun out and just shoot themselves, right? Should I pull the trigger? Say no. Okay, this is all I can get through security. But it's not mission impossible, right? It is possible with the right kind of software company, and I bet everyone in here that works for a software outsourcing company is saying, yes, and it's my company. Okay, well, how are you going to prove that? Because here's the list of problems again. How are you going to address these issues. Because, you know, again, they don't really care that you have a PhD in C#. They want to know, they're listening, what radio station are they listening to? WIIFM, right? They want to know what's in it for them. And I think too many times customers, too many times software companies say, here's what we do. And the client is saying, here's what I have this problem. And you're leaving it to the client to connect the dots, as we say, to try and apply what you do to what their needs are. And you need to go right to what their needs are. If you're going to hit them in the heart, if you're going to hit them where their pain is. Imagine a big burning coal of heat in their chest. That is their pain. And you have the fire hose, you hope, or at least a water pistol, that you can use to put out that fire, that pain that they have. I'm trying, maybe I'll find more ways to use this water pistol now that I brought it. Okay, so 7 buy stages. We propose that there is a way to look at what buyers go through, and that there's several different levels of the process of which they go through before they decide to hire your company or your competitor to develop software for them. So we'll go through each of these. The first 3 are what I call marketing stages, and the last 4 are really sales. Okay, so here's this guy, status quo, stage 1. Is he looking for software outsourcing? Probably not. He may be experiencing, or may suspect that he'll have a problem in the future, but he's not really looking for a solution. He's that guy when you cold call him, he definitely hangs up the phone. He's deleting your emails before you can send them, because he doesn't have a problem. So we'll talk about why we would care about this, but I think it's interesting to connect with this guy. Notice his eyes are closed, so hey, I'm not even looking for a solution. So don't call me. All right, something bad's happened. He's had a priority shift. Now that pain, that glow is starting to happen here. Oh man, I have to do something. I have to, maybe outsource. I've heard about it. Maybe it'll work. Maybe there's a way to make it work. What's even possible? I don't even know. Now you start to learn, oh, there's places that I can go besides India maybe, if he's had a bad experience with India, or maybe India is still an excellent choice for him. He doesn't know. He's going to start to do the research at stage 3 to begin, as we say, build a business case. And he may be looking for experts. So, and I don't mean expert at C# or something like that, but some sort of expert that can really help him or her, if it's a she, to get through this phase. Okay, now, outsourcing. Yeah, it probably can work. I read Software Without Borders, so I think I know what I'm doing. Pretty good at this. So now, now what are the options? Where can I go to find these companies? Can I go online? That sort of thing. So now now this is where they want to talk to you, where he wants to talk to you. And see, he's looking very carefully with his face at the different options. So let's say you've gotten on his list, you've gotten on his radar, as we say. But wait a minute, Belarus. I don't know. Here, even in the spring, there's snow there. Do I really want to outsource there? So that's a step back, right? It's like, it sounded good in the beginning, but now I'm not so sure. And then, so you have to be prepared at this stage to say, this has never happened before. It has never snowed in March. It's very unusual, very rare. Or whatever his issue or challenge might be at that point. And you should expect it, because in sales, there's always objections, right? So you want to be aware of those objections. So now, I'm ready to make a decision. Your company's on the short list. What are you going to be able to tell him now to make sure that everything that he's heard is really true? Okay? And then there's finally the choice and commitment where they're ready to sign on the deal. It's the negotiations part. It's maybe you writing a proposal, that sort of thing. So each of these stages are content that you can provide to this buyer to help him or her along in this process and move along and paint a picture for them where your company continues to look better and better and better. So remember, at stage 1, there's no point in calling the guy because he's just not even interested, right? But you still want to gain their attention if you can. Because when he gets to, and you want to be able to build credibility and trust with him, because when that problem comes along, you want to be there for him, right? You want to be his friend, his trusted friend. You can, ideally. So you want to be able to create and publish his content so that when he or she is searching, even in stage 1, you're going to come up in the search results. So you have an opportunity to match your expertise with the kinds of things that he's searching for. So if you are in stage 1, or if your buyer is in stage 1, what kind of things would you write about? So what are some industry trends that you might write about? Anybody? What are some trends in software development these days? Mobile, cloud, excellent.
Big data.
Big data, like Hadoop and Cassandra and those kinds of applications, yeah. Anything else? Social networking, yeah. I heard something else here. What? Software as a service in the cloud, that kind of thing. Okay, good. So what are we talking about here? These are all technical topics, right? There's almost nothing to do with hiring programmers in another country or anything like that, because he's not looking. His eyes are closed on those topics. His eyes are open on the technology topics. Problems and pain points. Even if you have all the programmers you need, you probably still have problems, right? Software quality would be a good one. So maybe how to do automated testing. So a lot of times these VP of engineering guys, they think I'm so smart, I'm just going to read a book or read an article online and then I'll do it myself, right? And they think they can do it themselves, but then when they try, they find that maybe it's not so easy. But if they've read your article, they might come back to you when they have the real pain. And what are companies like theirs doing? They're outsourcing developers. That's what you have to tell them. Because he's not ready to buy, so don't try to sell exactly what you do, because he's not going to listen to you. So then, as we said, something bad happens to shift from, everything's happy, I may have a problem, I don't really care about outsourcing, and then, now I really have to look. And we say that is the window of dissatisfaction. Suddenly, things are going great, and then, something comes along to move you from that stage to another. So what are those things that might happen? What do you think could happen to this VP of engineering or the CIO that would cause them to do this? How about this one, where we're going to do a mobile application, we're going to release it by the end of the year, I'm in stage 1, I don't really care about outsourcing, I'm planning out my mobile application strategy, and I'll just hire those engineers later. And then we get to July, and I can't really find anybody, right? You start to, that window of dissatisfaction opens, and they start looking. And the question is, will you be ready? Because in stage 1 we did. In stage 2, now they're starting to look for, how do I get past this pain point? Tell me some stories about how other companies had trouble hiring programmers, or whose budgets got cut, and what they did, and how they went about doing it. It's important to use real information here, hard facts and statistics, it says on the slide, but don't bore me with a lot of numbers. Tell me a story. Just like I told you a story about my trip to Disneyland that never happened, but that's another story. And then what's the business value, right? Oh, cheap programmers. Yeah, but wait a minute, not that cheap. It's worth paying a little bit more, still way less than salaries in the United States, but here's a story. Here's a story about a company that tried that and failed, and when they outsourced at a higher rate with a more diverse team, with junior and senior programmers, blah, blah, blah. I think there's an interesting story there that a guy like this in stage 2 will be wanting to read. And then when they get to stage 3, here's the kind of content that you could provide. Things that discuss the risks. What are the risks? What are some of the risks that this guy, let's say he hires your company, what kind of things have gone wrong in your company, in your companies, that could happen maybe even worse at another company? Any ideas? Requirements management, great. So how about, does this happen to you? I have an idea. How much will it cost? This is what the client asks, right? Well, what's your idea? Well, here's a one-page description. That's not enough. You need more information than that. So that's a great risk that Mr. Client, if you come to me or go to an outsourced company with not really being prepared, you have a huge risk of spending too much money and being late. Because some of those companies out there will just say yes, 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 we can do that for you. You know, a year later, they're still paying and not getting any software. So this one, enlarge their thinking in strategic ways. Kind of a complicated way of saying it. So I think what this means to me is the VP of Engineering or CIO is thinking, I'm going to hire programmers in Belarus. But you have to tell them, you know, no, you're not just getting Alexei and Olga and, you know, 3 other programmers. You're getting a whole process, a system, a higher quality. You need to emphasize these things. At stage 3, these are the kinds of topics that the buyer is interested in listening to and reading. And you might even have a story about how their customers will benefit, how their career can be enhanced. What about their existing programming team? I mean, this is a big concern, right? If you're a VP of engineering, I already have 12 programmers. That's not enough. If I outsource to Belarus, what are those 12 guys going to think? You can write in stories about how you work well with other programming teams, how you do your daily stand-up meetings, even though there's a big time zone difference, and so on. Buyers in this stage are going to be interested, very interested, in hearing that kinds of information. So at this point, you haven't really tried to sell them on anything, right? You haven't tried to sell this person on, you know, me, I'm the right company for you, and, you know, let's talk, let's have a meeting, let me give you a proposal. They don't want a proposal. They're just doing research at that point in time. But when they get past stage 3 and into stage 4, yay, now you have a sales opportunity, which is what you're probably more comfortable with, or your companies are more comfortable in discussing. This is where you think the buying process starts, right? And what we're seeing is it starts way earlier. So at this point, you know, you've gotten on their radar, on their short list maybe, and they feel he feels confident that he knows what he's doing. Now it's just a question of understanding whether you're the right company or not. So success stories or case studies are important. Maybe there's been more outsourcing to Belarus recently. That would be of interest to him. And then what are these added values and things that your company is offering compared to just hiring a company from another country? So for you, it might be compared to a company in India, let's say, better communication skills, because as you know, there's cultural differences that even though many Indians know English, they don't communicate the same way as Westerners do. Our most popular blog post on the Accelerant's website last year was the 7 ways an Indian programmer says no. Now, they say no. We don't, as Americans, don't always hear it, but they're saying no. So I'll give you an example. I flew to India 2 years ago. My flight was canceled. I'm stuck in the Mumbai airport. So I go up to the agent and I say, can I get on that Cathay Pacific flight? And he says, that would be very difficult. He's saying no. You know, in New York, we'd say NFW, which is there's no polite way, but really no. You know, that's what he's saying. So you have to be tuned in to hearing that. Anyway, Americans don't always know that. We have these cultural differences. You would have an advantage, I think, because culturally we speak more directly to each other, and it's much easier for Americans to understand. But besides that human side, there's also technical sides as well. You may have better educated programmers, other kinds of things that you're going to add as value to the client. And then step backs, we talked about this. There's this concept of a reversal where a client says, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not sure I want to do that. And I think there's too much risk outsourcing to a company in Belarus, whatever the issue might be. Probably not the weather, probably something more serious. Well, you need to have a story or be able to tell them that it would be more risky if they didn't outsource to you. So here's one, attrition. Oh, wait a minute, I just heard that your programmers may leave the project. You know, what are you going to do? I'm not sure I want to hire your company now because your programmers could leave. So you have to be prepared with a story, I mean something true, about how you actually prevent retention from happening to begin with. You have higher salaries, you have benefits, you have a team spirit, you have whatever it is that you have. And tell that story, because that's what, at this stage, the buyer really wants to hear, to turn them around. And especially if you can say, and if you look at attrition in other countries or other companies, we're doing it so much better. So now it seems less risky for them to select you than those other companies. And then finally, they're ready to select you. So the things that you have on your website, testimonials, the information about them and their company. And one thing that we see a lot of times is companies want to hide behind their website. You go to the About Us page and there's no people actually listed. You don't know who they are. If you go on LinkedIn, you may be able to find the company, but only 2 or 3 people. That's a real turnoff to Americans. We want to know as much, the buyer wants to know as much as he can about you. And so he'll look on your Facebook page, and ideally he'll find pictures of the team, doing, Christmas and holidays and whatnot. And, that gives them a better feeling, more confidence that, yeah, there really is a company here and they know what they're doing. Third-party endorsements is one thing that our company does, Accelerants. We can go and visit our partner companies that develop software. And so when we tell clients about them, we give them a lot of information, including videos and photographs and a really great description that gives that buyer more confidence that, wow, if Steve and Andy went there and liked them, they must be pretty good. And you are. And then finally, the choice and commitment. And this is common stuff that you probably already have, but you always can get better. A buyer-focused proposal, and then a buyer-focused contract that addresses those issues that clients have. Who owns the software that you develop for your clients? Who actually owns it, right? The client should own it. And that your agreement better say that, and you better point out to the client, our agreement says that you own it, because that's what they really want. Now that we've gone through those 7 stages, let me stop and ask, are there questions? Because we went through a lot of detailed information there, and any questions? Let me ask you a question. How many of your companies develop these kinds of things or doing, how many companies have a blog? How many people work for companies that have a blog? Okay, great. So what kinds of things are you writing about on your blog? Anybody?
Knowledge.
Sorry?
Knowledge.
Okay, about the technologies, right? So kind of things that would appeal maybe at that stage 1 then maybe? Where the buyer's not looking to outsource, but maybe wanting to learn more about the technology? Maybe? Okay. Somebody else over here? Okay. How many people, is there anything you disagree with on this? Do you think is not right? Everybody agrees. Okay. Good. So here's some of the kinds of content that you could consider creating. Webinars. Webinars are kind of, how many people have attended a webinar online? Everybody? Yeah, okay. Have they all been really good? To me, it's always an opportunity for multitasking, right? Yeah, I'm going to watch the webinar, but I'm going to answer emails at the same time. If the phone rings, it's okay. The reason is because webinars are usually the guy reading the slides. Partner marketing content. Webinars, they're so boring. And I can read the slides. I don't need to hear someone do it. So we have a special technique where we pre-record a conversation. So it's usually with me and a client, and we talk about what their problems were, what they did. The last one we did was a client from Canada, and he convinced himself that he wanted to outsource to South America. So he went on a trip to Colombia, Costa Rica, Argentina, I think he went to Brazil, Mexico. He went to all these countries. He's like, what a great story. I want to hear his story, So I had a conversation with Dave. His name was David also. And we heard all about his travels and what he saw when he went to Bolivia. We went to Bolivia, and there were tanks in the street, and it was very exciting. So he didn't outsource to Bolivia. But we have a great partner in Bolivia, so it's a really good place to consider. We did the outsourcing in paradise. It was another conversation with a client who had a programming operation in India with 90 programmers, and they were trying to do agile development, and from California there was a 12-hour difference, and it just wasn't working. So he decided to look at Latin America, and Costa Rica, the country in Central America, was his destination, and we had a great conversation. And so we record the conversation, and then create the slides that match what's being talked about. So the images are changing a lot faster than my presentation today, unfortunately. And it's really, visually very stimulating and interesting because the pictures are describing or show what's being talked about on the webinar. So we have like 0% people dropping off, and they're really very attractive. Video blogs is another thing. I mean, you're in Belarus, I'm in California. How do we really get to know each other without having to get on a plane and fly in? It's video, and we are trying to make much more extensive use of video. We are absolutely using more video, not only interviews, but also in the phone conversations that we have with client introductions. Doing a video call right to get started makes a lot of sense. And then we do ebooks and providing that bait, if you will. So when we go fishing for prospects in the various stages, we have the right kind of bait on our hook. And that bait is usually in the form of an ebook about a topic that fits that stage. And then, of course, we do on-site evaluations of our partners and with a whole checklist of things, and create a report that we hand to the client also when we make a recommendation. So this is too much. This is too much of a sales slide. Sorry about that. But rapid referral. This is why clients like us, because we give all this advice for free, and then they get to get started. So if I'm an American company and I want to go out and outsource around the world, I mean, it can take me months to find the right companies and evaluate them and go through that whole process. And we help them do that in just a few days. So if you're interested in this topic, we went through a lot of material. I'm speaking English, and I know it's not your native language. I put together an ebook with not just the slides, but additional words and descriptions of what I talked about today that we'll make available to download somehow for you. So that's free. I'd be happy to send that to you. And then if you work for a company that you think could benefit from what we're doing, then we can talk more here, and we have a little application process to go through. And now, Dimitri, I think it's time to hand out the books, and then we'll sign them. But before that, let me just ask if there's any questions about what we're talking about here. Yes? Disneyland. Yeah, I did, finally, as an adult. When I was in college, I got to go to Disney World, which they built in Florida, which if you've gone to Disney anything, it's probably Disney World in Florida. And then when I had my own children and living in California, I got to go to Disneyland. And I went on that same ride, and I heard that same wonderful song. Would you like to hear the song again?
Actually, I got a real question, if you don't mind.
You should say that would be difficult.
All right. The question is there like a scheme how to get to suppose a company, right?
Okay.
Like working builders. I want to work as a partner with American, like with your company, right?
Okay.
Etc.com. What should I do? Which steps should I do to bring these like partnership to like great success?
So what should you do to help? What should you publish?
I mean, is there a scheme, like a step-by-step guide, like how to get to the successful partnership with the American company?
Okay, I see. Well, so like after they've hired you and you're doing software development for them, or how to be successful in finding them and closing business with them?
Yeah, like a guide, like how this usually happens.
Well, I don't think there's any particular book about software outsourcing companies and how they make their sales decision. There are many books about the sales process and how decisions are made. I think what I've presented here, and it's a 20-page ebook that is free to download, applies it to software outsourcing and gives you ideas about the kinds of things you should do. It's a big problem. I think the technology companies, we often get into that field of dreams thing. We think if we build a software outsourcing company, somehow the clients will find you. This is a way to help them find you. I don't know. I think this is the most step-by-step I've seen.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, he's got the microphone. Okay, we're going on this
I
side.
have a question.
Okay, great.
Do you have a checklist probably to identify at which stage the bar is from your stage?
How do we know what stage they're in? Well, I think the trick is to put information on your website that allows them to self-identify. So that if I'm downloading a piece of information that talks about how to improve QA of my software processes, or how to use HTML5 or something like that, then I'm probably in one of those very early stages, right? If I download if I read your blog post or download your ebook on the 7 factors to look for in hiring programmers from Belarus, then I'm probably at a later stage because I'm interested in hiring programmers from Belarus. So it's just providing information that is appropriate for each of these stages and making it available. So then, if I'm downloading something at an early stage, then you want to follow up with like an email process periodically to see, and you don't ask it this way. You don't say, "Are you at stage 1 yet?" or stage 2, or but you ask questions. Have you wondered about the 7 ways to hire a Belarusian programmer? And if they download it, then you know that they've gotten on. So you want to encourage it. You don't want to just wait for them to come. If they've come to you at an early stage, you want to keep in touch, and as we say, nurture that lead so that they are ready to do business with you at a later stage. Does that help? Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Steve, you talked about much classic strategy in this business. So my question is about personal interaction.
Okay.
Is this interaction, personal interaction, important now? And how many American companies use this classic approach with website, with social networking, and so on and so on? And how many companies really use personal interaction, personal communications to find outsourcing partner?
Okay, good. I think a way to ask your question a different way would be, how important is social media and conversations on Twitter and things like that in the sales process?
Yes,
okay.
Something concerns to personal relationships.
Right. Okay, well, you just said personal relationships. I think personal relationships are critical. And I think many software outsourcing companies will have personal relationships with a few people in the United States. And that leads to some deals. But then you either have to find a way to increase the number of personal relationships to make that work, or you do something else. What I'm proposing here is to do something else, and that something else is to create content that anybody could read, whether they know you or not. But once they read that content, they get to know you. But if you're sitting there on your laptop or your iPad, with, on Twitter, hoping that someone's going to come along and ask you, for business, I think that's highly unlikely. So our strategy is to not spend a lot of time on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, but we definitely want to use those channels for publishing or to promote the content that we have published. So we are active on those sites, but we're not actively participating in like LinkedIn groups. LinkedIn groups just seems like a huge waste of time to us, because if you post anything there, suddenly you're bombarded with emails from Indian companies, right? Because they hire these guys that are for really low money. All they have to do is patrol these groups looking for for projects. So we don't find that to be effective. And it's so bad that any American decision maker is going to think, I'm not going to waste my time doing that, spending time there. So we don't bother looking there at all.
Yeah, exactly. So personal communication is important, but it's not critical for this business.
Right. I mean, personal communication at the appropriate time is critical, but to start off with personal communication is not necessary. Okay. Next. Yes.
Thank you for such brilliant lecture. As a quality assurance, I'd like to ask you for two questions. The one is how do the outsourcers measure the quality of the products? Maybe from certifications or other recommendations or anything else. And the second question is for companies. What is your advice? How can they advertise, emphasize that their quality is good and the better than other competitors?
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry. The first question was
About how to measure the quality of product.
okay. Got it. Yeah.
Outsourcing.
Right. How many people know about CMMI? CMMI. Okay. Did anybody work for a company that's CMMI certified, whatever? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. So that's one way. One of the statistics you can gather if you have CMMI is the number of bugs per 1,000 line of code or whatever. And that is an objective way to do it, but I was on a call with, we have a partner in South America that's CMMI level 5, and it's part of their culture. They live this quality thing. So it's not just a logo on their website. It's really something they do. And we're on a call with a client, and he says, yeah, so we have 0.3 bugs per 10,000 lines of code, or whatever the statistic was, and the client's thinking, well, geez, I can't do that. I mean, it was like almost too hard to believe, So I think generally speaking, most American companies are not interested in CMMI because they think it's too formal, too bureaucratic, too complicated. So that leaves us with a difficult problem, because how can you then prove that your code is of higher quality? So I think it can only be through gathering some kind of statistics like that and telling a story of how you're finding bugs in your test-driven development process and things of that nature. And then your second question was how to advertise or promote this.
Yeah.
You are.
Well,
yeah. So then it really has to be to tell these stories in a very interesting and entertaining way, and tell it. What a story is, right? It has there's multiple characters, and there's a conflict, and there's an arc of change where the character changes. And I mean, you don't have to. It's not a Hollywood movie necessarily, but there has to be some progression and some drama in this to make it interesting to read. Right? So if you just give a lot of facts and figures, then it's kind of boring.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't know, whoever gets the microphone. All right.
Hi, Steve. What country image does Belarus have in the United States? So what do people know about us? I mean, business people.
What do they hear about?
What do business people in the US hear about Belarus? What does they know?
Well, from our government, we hear that Belarus is not a very democratic country, so on and so forth, from our media and whatnot. And I think what they hear, so if you just listen to the media, that's what you hear. I think you have to really get down to the next level and speak to people and speak to the companies. And, I'm not sure that has much impact on our business relationships. It's like Pakistan. Pakistan's another country, I wouldn't put Belarus in the same category by any means, but it's another country that has a bad reputation with America. Yet a lot of American companies outsource there. And on a personal level, on a business level, it's a good thing. So I think most American businesses are open to the idea of outsourcing to Belarus. But remember what radio station they are listening to. It's WIIFM. You have to tell what's in it for them. Why should I outsource to Belarus and ignore all that stuff I hear in the media? Is it worth doing? I think so. I think it's something to consider.
Can I also ask a question?
Yes.
When you work with your lead or your potential client and you go through all the stages,
Yeah.
Is there any clear indicators for you for some period to stop doing this? Apart from clear indicators, if the client, for example, stopped asking the questions or answering the emails, when he realizes it's really not worth wasting time for this corporation, so to say. So is there any indicators that you can share with?
So I think your question is there a point that we reach where clients become too afraid to outsource or too, I'm sorry, I didn't hear because of the microphone, I think.
Yeah, a question was, is there any indicator for a marketing or salesperson to understand, okay, this is the point, I don't want to waste time on this breach anymore.
Right.
And what are these indicators?
Right, okay. Well, I think that you can only do so much. I mean, if you keep calling and they're at stage 1, unless you're offering something of value that it will be of interest to them at that stage, you don't want to do it. You don't want to do anything else. You still want to keep calling, but you don't want to, say, "Do you have a deal for me yet?" Because that's not, wouldn't be polite. But I think you don't give up. I think you always give. You always have to have hope that someday what you do is going to be useful to them, because you know what you do is useful for that ideal client out there. So in a way, you're just waiting for that client to be that company to fit the services that you have. And when you send emails, of course, you have to use one of these opt-in kind of email systems. And if they opt out, well, then they've told you they're not interested, right? So then you don't even know, because it happens in the middle of the night, and who cares? So I don't think it's necessarily really a conscious thing, unless you're busy calling people and asking them for the deal, and they finally say no, like that angry guy on the one slide that I had. So. Okay, next. Any other questions?
Steve, do you have...
Sorry, I can't see.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
Does Accelerance has any basic criteria for their possible partners, or you're trying to evaluate each possible partner separately?
Yeah, okay, good. So I come from the Silicon Valley area of California, so I'm more like Dave in that slide, the VP of engineering. That's my background in being at product companies. So when we hired programmers, and when I did outsourcing, I was looking for a company that could build a team of programmers. I wasn't looking for, individual engineers. I wanted a team. I wanted a process. Therefore, I want partners in our network that are going to be able to provide that, because I know there are a lot of companies that need that sort of level of engagement and that level of service. We look for companies that have at least 50 programmers. We say 50 to a couple thousand, because any smaller than that, it can be challenging to ramp up new customers. There often will be less of a track record. Companies have been in business for several years and have ideally had some success with American clients. And then, where was I going? Oh, larger than a few thousand, or a couple hundred, 200 to 300 programmers is about the right size, because the way we position our services, we're looking for clients that need a team of between 5 and 50 programmers. And so it's usually partner companies in that 50 to several hundred or 1,000 that fit best and can provide it. And then in addition, we're looking for some sort of technology focus, or some sort of focus or experience, so that it makes it an easy match. So how many companies have we seen from India that we do .NET, we do Java, we do PHP, we do Ruby on Rails, what do you need done? We do that too. And, it's like, yeah, but, it's hard to really pin them down, and it's not just India. I'm glad we're not recording this. We have great partners in India, and that get it. They understand this model, and it's just that it seems like there are so many companies in India that don't, and that are too unfocused as to what they're doing. Then finally, I'd say one kind of subtle thing is we're looking for companies that are actually just providing software development services and not also developing their own products. Or if they do have their own products, they're a completely separate, completely different division, and there's no confusion between the two. So the very larger companies don't fit because they have their own sales forces, their own sales teams, their own marketing efforts, and they don't really need our help. They have enough publicity as it is. They're really tiny, small companies. It's hard to really convince a client that they're a good fit for them, that they're not too risky. So,
Well, thanks.
all right.
Steve, I have really two questions. The second one is based on the answer of the first one. Does your company provide the consulting services to the software outsourcing companies in leading their sales and marketing process?
Okay, let me just answer that. We haven't really worked on a consulting basis. We really look to have partner companies that we have a relationship with, and in the course of that relationship, we're very free with our advice and recommendations about what they should do and what changes they should make. And then in addition, we help create the content for those partner companies, for those that want it or need it.
Okay, so yeah. The second question is, do you have any established relationships of such kind with the Belarusian companies already?
Yeah, we have two partner companies here, Oxagil and iTransition, and we may look at other companies here. We're not sure at this point, so we're happy to talk and have those discussions while we're here.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it? Are we done? Nope. There's a question.
I'm sorry, but we have no time.
Okay. Sorry. We can talk after.
Ну что, я думаю, стоит поблагодарить. И это еще не все. Так, сейчас под барабанную дробь я достаю мобильник, в котором записано победитель. Да, сейчас еще. Как вы думаете, кто будет первым победителем? Ладно. Павел Новик, Акронис, просим на сцену. Ура, он есть.
By the way, I'm working on the second edition of the book, so look, the new chapter 1 should be out by the end of this month, and will be, it's going to be freely available for download. All right.
Ну что, теперь вторая барабанная дробь. Андрей Белецкий. Кстати, прошу заметить, ни один из выигрышей в компании-организаторе не работает. Так что честно. И давайте еще раз похлопаем Стиву. Очень интересный доклад.